Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The Omnisphere station hung in the void like a jewel someone forgot to polish. All gleaming metal and pretentious architecture, the kind of place that screamed, "We're important," in about 15 different languages. It was the Galactic Council's pride and joy, a floating monument to bureaucracy, where species from across the stars gathered to do what politicians do best: argue, posture, and occasionally make decisions that affected trillions of lives. Today was special, though. Today, humanity was getting its report card. Captain Rowan stood in the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back, watching ships from 100 worlds dock at the station's outer rings. He was tall, lean, with the kind of calm expression that made people nervous because they couldn't quite read what he was thinking. Next to him, Commander Tess paced like a caged animal, her boots clicking in irritated rhythm against the deck plating. "I don't like this," Tess said for the 5th time in as many minutes. "They've been evaluating us for 6 months. That's not standard procedure." "Nothing about first contact is standard," Rowan replied, his voice carrying that infuriating evenness that Tess both admired and wanted to strangle him for. "We're the new kids. They're doing their homework." "Homework," Tess snorted. "Right. Because when I do homework, I usually send probe ships to catalog someone's entire military capacity, agricultural output, and genetic structure." Rowan's lips twitched, almost a smile. "When you put it that way." The comm chimed, cutting off whatever smart-ass remark Tess was preparing. A synthesized voice, pleasant and utterly devoid of personality, announced, "Human delegation, please proceed to Council Chamber Omega. Your classification hearing will begin in 10 standard minutes." "Classification hearing," Tess muttered as they headed for the door. "Like we're specimens in a zoo." "Technically, from their perspective, we are," Rowan said. "Unknown species, uncontacted until recently, no established position in the galactic hierarchy. They need to figure out where we fit. And if we don't like where they want to put us." Rowan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that might have been amusement, or might have been something considerably less friendly. "Then we politely explain why they're mistaken." The council chamber was exactly what you'd expect from a governmental body with delusions of grandeur. Massive, circular, with seating arranged in ascending tiers that put the council members literally above everyone else. Subtle. The ceiling was a dome of transparent aluminum, offering a view of the stars beyond, and the whole place hummed with translation algorithms working overtime to convert hundreds of languages into something approaching mutual comprehension. The chamber was packed. Apparently, watching the new species get classified was the galactic equivalent of a sporting event. Rowan and Tess took their positions in the center circle, standing in a pool of light that would have felt dramatic if it wasn't so obviously designed to make them feel small. Around them, the council members watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. At the highest tier, seated on a throne that probably cost more than Earth's entire GDP, was High Arbiter Nalmoth. The insectoid was impressive, Rowan had to admit. 3 meters of chitinous armor, compound eyes that glittered like cut gems, and mandibles that clicked together with the precision of expensive machinery. Nalmoth had been running the council for, according to the briefing files, about 200 standard years. That was a long time to be in charge. Long enough to get comfortable. Long enough to stop questioning your assumptions. To Nalmoth's right sat War Prime Jirakas, and if Nalmoth was impressive, Jirakas was terrifying. The reptilian stood even when sitting, his posture radiating controlled violence. Scales the color of old blood covered his body, and his eyes, golden, slit-pupilled, tracked every movement Rowan made with predatory focus. "Humans!" Nalmoth's voice boomed through the translation system, clicking and chittering under the rendered words. "Welcome to the Galactic Council. We have completed our evaluation of your species." Here it comes, Rowan thought. Based on comprehensive analysis of your biology, psychology, and societal structure, we have reached a determination regarding your classification within the established hierarchy. Tess shifted her weight. Rowan could practically feel the tension radiating off her. You are hereby classified as a Tier 9 prey species. The chamber erupted, not in protest, in laughter, actual laughter. 100 different species, producing 100 different sounds that all somehow conveyed the same thing: amusement at humanity's expense. Tess's jaw clenched so hard, Rowan heard her teeth grind. "Prey species," she said, her voice cutting through the noise with the precision of a laser scalpel. "You want to run that by us again?" Nalmoth's mandibles clicked in what might have been the insectoid equivalent of a patronizing smile. "Commander Tess, I understand this may be disappointing. However, the classification system is based on objective criteria. Your species exhibits numerous prey characteristics." "Such as?" Rowan asked, his tone still calm, still even, still completely unreadable. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a rotating three-dimensional model of a human body. Data streams scrolled alongside it, dense with biological metrics. "Your forward-facing eyes suggest predatory ancestry," Nalmoth conceded, gesturing with one of his multiple arms. "However, this is offset by numerous prey adaptations. Your hunting methodology, for instance." The display shifted, showing humans engaged in what the Council had identified as persistence. Hunting, tracking prey over long distances, running it to exhaustion. "Persistence hunting is a prey behavior," Girakis spoke for the first time, his voice a low growl that needed no translation enhancement. "True predators strike decisively. Ambush, overwhelm, kill. Your species chases prey until it collapses from exhaustion. This is the tactic of scavengers and prey animals attempting to tire a predator." "You're joking," Tess said flatly. "We do not joke about classification," Nalmoth replied. "Consider further evidence. Your species lacks natural weapons. No claws, no venomous bite, no armored hide. You are, by galactic standards, remarkably fragile." "We have tools," Rowan pointed out. "Tool dependency." Another council member chimed in, some kind of avian species with feathers that shimmered blue-green. "Classic prey behavior, unable to survive without artificial enhancements." "You're sitting in a space station," Tess said slowly, as if speaking to a particularly dim child. "Made of tools, using tools to translate what we're saying, with tools monitoring everything in this chamber. We are apex predators who have mastered tools," Girakis rumbled. "You are prey who depend on them. There is a distinction." The display changed again, this time showing human social structures, cities, governments, cooperative efforts. "Your species exhibits extreme cooperative behavior," Nalmoth continued. "High empathy levels, strong pack bonding, reluctance to abandon injured individuals. These are survival adaptations for prey species. Predators are solitary, or operate in small, efficient hunting groups." "Wolves hunt in packs," Rowan observed. "Wolves are Tier 3 predators," Girakis said dismissively. "Not apex. The Council recognizes only true apex predators. those who hunt alone and fear nothing. Rowan's expression didn't change, but Tess caught the slight tension in his shoulders, the tiny tell that said he was getting angry, even if his face showed nothing. Furthermore, Nalmoth continued, warming to his subject, your species shows remarkable aversion to killing your own kind. Your wars, while destructive, show clear attempts at minimizing casualties through rules of engagement, medical treatment of enemies, and post-conflict reconciliation. Apex predators do not coddle their competitors. Let me get this straight, Tess said, her voice dripping with a sarcasm so thick you could drown in it. We're prey because we're tough to kill, can run forever, work together effectively, use our brains to overcome physical limitations, and don't murder each other for fun. Do I have that right? Essentially, yes, Nalmoth said, apparently missing the tone entirely. Your classification as Tier 9 prey species is final. This designation comes with certain obligations. A new document appeared in the holographic display. Rowan scanned it, his expression still neutral, while Tess's face went through several interesting color changes. This is a protection tax, Tess said, her voice tight. You're charging us for protection. Standard practice, Nalmoth confirmed. Prey species require protection from predatory species. The Council provides this service through our peacekeeping forces. The tax structure is quite reasonable. 15% of your gross planetary product, payable in resources or currency. 15%, Tess repeated. Annually, Nalmoth added helpfully. Rowan looked at the document for a long moment. Then he looked up at the Council, and for just a second, something showed on his face. Not anger, exactly. More like amusement. The kind of expression a chess player might wear when their opponent makes a catastrophic mistake and doesn't realize it yet. That's quite generous, Rowan said, and his tone was so perfectly sincere that Tess actually turned to stare at him. We appreciate the Council's concern for our well-being. Nalmoth's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Excellent. We are pleased you understand the necessity. However, Rowan continued, and something in that one word made the entire chamber go quiet. I feel I should mention that humanity has a unique approach to problem-solving, particularly when it comes to hierarchical classifications. Captain? Nalmoth's compound eyes fixed on Rowan with sudden interest. We like to test our assumptions, Rowan said simply. Make sure we understand the rules before we play the game. I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings about where humanity fits in your system. Girakis leaned forward, his scales rasping against his throne. You contest the classification? Rowan smiled. It was not a comforting expression. I'm simply suggesting that your evaluation may have been based on incomplete data. The evaluation was thorough, Nalmoth said, but there was a note of uncertainty in the translated words. 6 months of observation, genetic analysis, sociological modeling. Observation from a distance, Rowan interrupted gently. Scans and data streams and models. Very scientific, very objective. But you've never actually seen humans in, let's call it our natural habitat. Tess was staring at Rowan now with an expression somewhere between horror and delight, like she couldn't decide if he was insane or brilliant. Are you suggesting a field assessment? Another council member asked, some kind of aquatic species whose words burbled through the translator. That would be highly irregular. I'm suggesting, Rowan said, his voice still carrying that unsettling calm, that before you assign us a classification and a tax rate based on that classification, you might want to make absolutely certain you know what you're dealing with. The chamber erupted again, But this time it wasn't laughter. It was argument. Council members debating among themselves, their various languages creating a cacophony that the translators struggled to process. Gerakis raised one clawed hand, and silence fell immediately. The War Prime studied Rowan with those golden eyes, and something like respect flickered across his reptilian features. "You challenge the classification," Gerakis said. It wasn't a question. "I'm simply suggesting verification," Rowan replied, "for everyone's benefit. After all, if we truly are a prey species, you'll want your protection tags. But if there's been a mistake in classification—" He let the sentence hang. "There has been no mistake," Nalmoth said firmly. "However, in the interest of thoroughness and to prevent future disputes, the Council is willing to conduct a field assessment." "A trial by hunt," Gerakis said, and there was something eager in his voice now. "Standard procedure for disputed classifications. Human representatives against Council-selected hunters. Neutral territory. Survival conditions." Tess leaned close to Rowan, her voice barely a whisper. "You sure about this, Captain? Because I'm pretty sure you just volunteered us to be hunted for sport." Rowan's smile widened just slightly. "Tess, these idiots don't know the first thing about Earth's food chain. They think persistence hunting makes us prey. They think cooperation makes us weak. They think tool use makes us dependent. And you're going to educate them?" "I'm going to give them a practical demonstration," Rowan said. Then, louder, addressing the Council. "We accept the trial by hunt. 3 human volunteers against your chosen hunting party. Standard survival conditions. 1 full planetary rotation." Nalmoth's mandibles clicked rapidly, processing this. "Agreed. The trial will take place on Meridian 6, a neutral world with varied terrain. You will have 24 standard hours to prepare. The hunt will be observed by drone surveillance, and the footage will be presented to the full Council for evaluation." "Fair enough," Rowan said. "Choose your volunteers wisely, Captain," Gerakis said, and there was definitely amusement in his voice now. "My hunters are the finest in the galaxy. They have never failed to run down their prey." Rowan's expression didn't change, but his eyes, his forward-facing, predatory eyes, locked onto Gerakis with unblinking focus. "War Prime," he said softly, "I don't think you understand what you just agreed to." The meeting ended shortly after, with the Council members dispersing to discuss this unexpected turn of events. Rowan and Tess made their way back to their ship, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, as the airlock sealed behind them, Tess rounded on Rowan. "Okay," she said, "start talking. What the hell are we doing?" Rowan pulled up a holographic display, already compiling information on Meridian 6. "We're going to teach the galaxy a lesson about assumptions. By letting a bunch of apex predators hunt us through an alien wilderness?" "No," Rowan said, and that unsettling smile was back. "By showing them what an apex predator actually looks like. These species, Tess, they think predator means big teeth and bigger muscles. They think it means ambush hunting and solitary behavior. They've never encountered a predator like us." "And what kind of predator are we?" Rowan looked at her, and in his eyes, Tess saw something that made her reconsider every assumption she'd ever made about her calm, composed captain. "The kind that became the dominant species on a death world by being smarter, faster thinking, and more adaptable than everything that tried to eat us," he said quietly. "The kind that hunted megafauna to extinction with nothing but rocks and persistence. The kind that turned cooperation into a weapon and tool use into an art form. The kind that looks at a hostile environment and asks, not, Can we survive? But how fast can we dominate it? Tess was quiet for a moment. Then, you know the Council is going to stack the deck, right? They'll send their absolute best. Good, Rowan said. I want them to. I want every species in that council chamber to see what happens when you mistake humanity for prey. He pulled up a personnel file. Now, help me choose our third volunteer. We need someone who understands that the difference between a predator and prey isn't about teeth or claws. What's it about, then? Rowan's smile turned sharp. Mindset. And humans, Commander, have been perfecting the predator mindset for about 300,000 years. We didn't stop being apex predators when we invented civilization. We just got better at it. In the council chamber, Nalmoth watched the human ship undock through the observation port. Something nagged at the back of his multifaceted mind, an instinct honed over 2 centuries of political survival. This was a mistake, he said quietly. Nonsense, Gerakis replied, but he was staring at the departing ship with an expression that might have been doubt. They are prey. The hunt will prove it. Perhaps, Nalmoth said, but he kept watching the ship until it vanished into the darkness, and the nagging feeling didn't go away. Somewhere in that ship, a species the galaxy had classified as prey was preparing for a hunt. And for the first time in his very long life, High Arbiter Nalmoth wondered if perhaps the evaluation hadn't been as thorough as he'd believed. After all, humans had those forward-facing eyes for a reason. And in nature, there was really only one reason for forward-facing eyes: to track prey. The question was, who, exactly, was the prey in this scenario? The protection detail arrived at the human ship approximately 6 hours after the council meeting, and calling it protection was like calling a prison guard a hospitality consultant. Technically accurate, hilariously misleading. Rowan watched through the viewport as the shuttle docked, carrying what he assumed were Gerakis' finest warriors. Tess stood beside him, arms crossed, radiating the kind of energy that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day. They're not even trying to be subtle, she muttered. Would you? Rowan asked. From their perspective, they're babysitting prey animals. Why bother with subtlety? The airlock cycled, and their escort entered. 6 warriors, each one a walking nightmare of scales, claws, and barely restrained aggression. They moved with the fluid confidence of apex predators who'd never questioned their place in the food chain. The leader stepped forward, slightly smaller than the others but carrying himself with distinct authority. His scales were a darker shade of crimson, almost black at the edges, and his eyes held something the others lacked: curiosity. I am Ornyx, he said, his voice a rumbling purr through the translator. War Prime Gerakis has assigned me to escort you to the demonstration arena. Demonstration arena? Tess asked, her tone suggesting she already knew and didn't like the answer. Standard procedure for prey species classification, Ornyx explained, and there was something in his voice, not quite apology, but close. All prey species must demonstrate their natural defenses before the Council. It helps determine appropriate protection protocols. Of course it does, Rowan said smoothly. Lead the way. The arena was impressive in the way that gladiatorial combat venues throughout history have always been impressive, which is to say, designed to make the participants feel small and the audience feel powerful. Tiered seating rose on all sides, already filling with council members and delegates eager for the show. The arena floor was divided into sections, each containing different terrain types: water, sand, rocky outcrops, dense vegetation, a prey species obstacle course, essentially. Humans, Nalmoth's voice boomed from the central platform. You will now demonstrate your species' natural defensive capabilities. Other prey species have already displayed their adaptations. Now we will observe yours. On the arena floor, holographic displays showed previous demonstrations. A species with chameleon-like camouflage blending into backgrounds. Another with incredible bursts of speed, crossing the arena in seconds. A third secreting some kind of paralyzing toxin from specialized glands. Impressive, Rowan had to admit. Nature had given these species tools for survival. Nature had given humanity something different. Captain Rowan, Nalmoth continued, please demonstrate your defensive capabilities. Rowan walked calmly to the center of the arena, scanning the environment. Various objects were scattered around, rocks, branches, bits of metal debris from previous demonstrations. He picked up a length of metal pipe, tested its weight, then used a piece of cordage to lash a rock to one end. The entire process took maybe 30 seconds. This, Rowan said, holding up his improvised weapon, is a human defensive capability. We call it a club. It's been in use for approximately 2 million years, give or take, still effective. The arena fell silent. Then, someone laughed. Then everyone was laughing. Tool dependency, the Avian Council member crowed. As we said, prey behavior. No self-respecting predator needs artificial claws. Rowan set down the club and picked up a longer branch, quickly fashioning it into a spear using a sharp rock. We also have this, and this. He indicated the rock itself. And about 10,000 other variations, depending on materials and need. Human defensive capabilities aren't biological. They're intellectual. Proving our point exactly, Nalamoth said, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Remove the tools, and humans are defenseless. Classic prey species adaptation. Tess stepped forward, her patience clearly exhausted. Okay, how about this? Endurance. You want to see a real human defense mechanism? She pointed at Jirakas. Pick your fastest warrior. I'll race them. Not a sprint. Sustained running. Let's see who drops first. Jirakas's eyes narrowed. You challenge my warriors to a test of speed? Endurance, Tess corrected. There's a difference. One of the warriors stepped forward, larger than Ornyx, with legs like coiled springs. I accept this challenge. The arena's terrain shifted, creating a circular track. The warrior took his position, muscles tensed. Tess rolled her shoulders, looking almost bored. The signal sounded. The warrior exploded forward, reaching speeds that should have been impossible for something that size. Tess jogged. Just jogged, maintaining a steady pace that looked almost leisurely by comparison. 5 minutes in, the warrior was still faster, but his breathing had become labored. 10 minutes, and he was slowing noticeably. 15 minutes, and Tess actually sped up slightly, her breathing still controlled and steady. At 20 minutes, the warrior collapsed, chest heaving, muscles locked in exhaustion. Tess jogged over to him, barely winded, and offered her water container. Good effort, she said genuinely. The arena was silent again, but this time nobody was laughing. Persistence, Rowan said quietly into the silence. Humans can run longer than almost anything else on our planet. We don't sprint after prey. We follow it. Hour after hour. Day after day, if necessary. We track it until it physically cannot continue. Then, when it's too exhausted to fight back, we close in. Prey behavior, Jirakas insisted, but his voice lacked certainty. Running from predators. Running ate prey, Rowan corrected. There's a difference, but I can see the Council has made up its mind. Nalmoth shifted uncomfortably on his platform. Something in the human captain's tone suggested layers they weren't seeing. "You still contest the classification?" Nalmoth asked. "I accept the trial by hunt," Rowan said. "As agreed. 1 planetary rotation. Your hunters against 3 humans." Ornyx, who had been watching everything with increasing fascination, spoke up. "War Prime, I volunteer for the hunting party." Girakis regarded his subordinate with surprise. "You wish to hunt prey animals?" "I wish to understand them," Ornyx said carefully. "These humans, they are not what I expected." "None of them are," Girakis agreed, something thoughtful crossing his features. "Very well. You will join the hunting party. Choose 4 others. The finest we have." Rowan smiled that unsettling smile. "Excellent. We'll need 24 hours to prepare and select our 3rd volunteer. Meridian 6, you said?" "Neutral territory," Nalmoth confirmed. "Mixed terrain, forests, rivers, rocky highlands. The planet has been seeded with basic food sources. Survival conditions only. No weapons beyond what you can craft or find." "Perfect," Rowan said. "One question. When we win this trial, what happens to our classification?" The chamber erupted in noise. Not laughter this time, but outrage. The sheer audacity of a prey species claiming they would win. Girakis raised his hand for silence, his golden eyes fixed on Rowan with something that might have been respect, or might have been the look a predator gives particularly interesting prey. "If you survive the full rotation without being subdued by the hunting party," Girakis said carefully, "the Council will reconsider your classification. But humans, understand? My hunters have never failed. They are apex predators from 6 different worlds. They will not go easy on you because you are new to the galaxy." Rowan's expression didn't change. "War Prime, we're not asking you to go easy. We're asking you to bring your absolute best." "Why?" Ornyx asked, genuinely curious. Rowan looked at the reptilian warrior, and for just a moment let something show in his eyes. Something cold and calculating and very, very old. "Because," he said quietly, "we want the lesson to stick." Meridian 6 was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Deceptive, inviting, absolutely lethal if you didn't respect it. Dense forests gave way to rushing rivers, which carved through rocky highlands that scraped at a sky the color of burnished copper. Corporal Nico stood at the drop-off point, breathing in the alien air, and grinning like this was the best vacation he'd ever taken. He was compact, built like someone who'd spent years doing things the hard way. And he had the kind of face that suggested he found most of life hilarious, especially the parts that were trying to kill him. "Reminds me of Montana," he said cheerfully, "except for the purple trees, and the 3 moons, and the whole being hunted by alien death machines thing." "Focus, Nico," Tess said, but she was smiling despite herself. "I am focused," Nico protested. "Focused on how much fun this is going to be. When was the last time you got to do actual fieldcraft? Real survival training? We've been sitting in climate-controlled ships for months." Rowan was studying the terrain through binoculars. Simple, old-fashioned, nothing electronic that could be tracked. The hunting party drops in. 30 minutes. 6 hunters, including Ornyx. Standard predator tactics. They'll track us using scent, thermal, and visual. "So we give them something to track," Nico said, already moving into instructor mode. "False trails, misdirection, the usual." "More than usual," Rowan said. "We need to make a point. These hunters think they understand predator behavior. They think we're prey because we don't ambush, don't kill efficiently, don't hunt alone." "So we show them different," Tess finished. "We show them better." Rowan corrected. They spent the first hour preparing their initial campsite. Obvious, easy to find, with clear signs of human presence. Then they methodically destroyed the area around it, leaving tracks heading in multiple directions, evidence of false starts and changes in plan. Make it look panicked, Rowan instructed. Make them think we're running scared. Are we, though? Nico asked, carefully arranging stones into a pattern that would catch attention. Not even a little bit, Tess said. The hunting party landed precisely on schedule. 6 of Jarakas' finest warriors, each one a nightmare of predatory evolution. Ornyx was among them, his darker scales making him almost invisible in the forest shadows. The others were a mix, reptilian like Ornyx, but also an insectoid scout with multifaceted eyes, and something that looked like a cross between a panther and a mantis. They found the human camp within 2 hours. Too easy. Far too easy. They fled, one of the hunters rumbled, studying the tracks. Multiple directions, disorganized. Ornyx said nothing, but his eyes were scanning the perimeter with growing unease. Something felt wrong. The camp was too obviously abandoned, the tracks too clear. Split into pairs, the hunt leader commanded. Track each trail. They cannot have gotten far. Wait, Ornyx started, but the others were already moving, confident in their abilities. They found the first trap an hour later. The hunter who stepped into it, the insectoid scout, fell 3 meters into a pit covered with branches and leaves. Sharpened stakes lined the bottom, positioned with surgical precision to injure but not kill. The scout's chitinous armor saved its life, but the creature was effectively out of the hunt, one leg impaled and unable to climb free. Prey doesn't trap, the hunt leader said, staring into the pit with something like confusion. Prey flees. These ones don't, Ornyx said quietly, and now his unease was turning into something else. Recognition, maybe, or fear. The hunters regrouped, more cautious now. They continued tracking, but the confidence was gone. The prey they were chasing was leaving signs, but not the right signs, not the signs of frightened animals running for their lives. Tess led 2 hunters on a chase through terrain that got progressively rougher, forcing them to expend energy on difficult climbs and treacherous footing. She stayed just visible enough to keep them engaged, just far enough ahead to prevent them from closing the distance. She wasn't running from them, she was running them, draining their energy, forcing them to waste strength while she maintained her pace, her breathing controlled, her movements efficient. Meanwhile, Nico had circled back. He moved through the forest like a ghost, using skills honed in a dozen survival schools on Earth. The tracks the hunters followed weren't random. They were deliberately placed, leading the hunting party exactly where the humans wanted them. Into rough terrain, through cold water that would mask scent, across rocky ground that would hide tracks. And all the while, Nico watched them from concealment, learning their patterns, understanding how they moved and thought. Night fell like a curtain, and the hunters expected the humans to hunker down. Prey animals didn't move in darkness. They found shelter and waited for dawn. The humans kept moving. Worse, they started making noise, distant calls that echoed through the forest, branches snapping with deliberate irregularity, shadows moving at the edge of vision, never quite clear enough to identify. The hunters, exhausted from hours of chasing prey that wouldn't behave properly, began to fracture. Fear crept in, not of the humans themselves, but of the unknown, of prey that acted like predators, of being hunted by the things they were supposed to be hunting. Ornyx felt it most acutely. He'd studied these humans, watched them in the arena, seen something in their eyes that the council had missed. These weren't prey animals using desperate tactics. These were predators using tactics the galaxy had never encountered. The hunters made camp as the smallest of Meridian 6's 3 moons rose overhead, casting pale light through the purple canopy. They posted watches, checked their perimeter, did everything right according to standard predator protocol. Nico found the watcher just before dawn. A young hunter, nervous, scanning the darkness with thermal vision. Nico approached from downwind, moving with patience that would have made a stalking cat jealous. He got within 3 meters before the hunter even sensed something was wrong. The sleeper hold was textbook, cut off blood flow to the brain, not air to the lungs. The hunter went limp in seconds, unconscious but unharmed. Nico lowered him gently to the ground, checked his vitals, then used a sharp rock to scratch a message in the dirt beside the sleeping hunter. "You're thinking like prey." When the hunter woke an hour later, bound with cordage made from local plants, he stared at the message for a long time. Then he started struggling against his bonds, calling for help. But the hunting party was already moving, driven by something they'd never experienced before: panic. In the observation center orbiting Meridian 6, Girakis watched the drone feeds with an expression that might have been concern. Beside him, Nalmoth's mandibles clicked irregularly, a sign of agitation. "Your hunters are faltering," Nalmoth said. "My hunters are learning," Girakis corrected. "Learning that perhaps we made assumptions we shouldn't have." On the screens, 3 humans moved through alien wilderness with the confidence of apex predators on familiar ground, and 6 of the galaxy's finest hunters looked increasingly like animals who'd just realized they weren't at the top of the food chain anymore. Dawn broke over Meridian 6 with the kind of light that should have brought relief. Golden rays cutting through the purple canopy, warming the rocks, chasing away the terrors of night. Should have. The 3 remaining hunters, including Ornyx, huddled together in a defensive position, and the sunrise only made things worse because now they could see the tracks. Human tracks, circling their camp, multiple times throughout the night. The prey had been watching them sleep. "This is wrong," one hunter muttered, his scales pale with stress. "All of this is wrong. Prey doesn't stalk. Prey doesn't circle. Prey doesn't leave messages." "They're not prey," Ornyx said quietly, and the certainty in his voice made the others look at him. "We made a mistake. The Council made a mistake. These humans, we don't have a classification for what they are." "Nonsense," the hunt leader snapped, but his voice shook. "They are simply using unconventional tactics. Desperation makes prey dangerous." "Does desperation look like this?" Ornyx gestured at their surroundings. Every approach to their camp had been marked, not with threats, but with careful arrangements of stones and branches, patterns, messages, each one saying the same thing: "We know exactly where you are." In the observation center, the council chamber was packed. Every delegate, every representative, every species that had laughed when humanity was classified as prey, all of them watching the feeds in silence. Girakis stood at the command console, his claws gripping the edge hard enough to leave marks in the metal. "They're herding my hunters." "Herding?" Nalmoth moved closer, compound eyes studying the tactical display. "Toward what?" "That clearing," Girakis pointed at the map. "See how every false trail, every encounter, every sound in the night, all of it pushes them northeast, toward that open ground." "Why would they want the hunters in open ground?" another council member asked. "Prey seeks cover." "Because," Girakis said slowly, understanding dawning in his golden eyes, "they're not hiding anymore. They're finishing this." The three hunters reached the clearing just as the third moon set below the horizon. It was perfect tactical ground. Nowhere to hide. Excellent sight lines in all directions. The worst possible place for an ambush. Which was exactly why it made the hunters even more nervous. Rowan was waiting in the center of the clearing, standing calmly, hands empty and visible. He looked tired. There was dirt on his clothes, scratches on his arms from branches. But his eyes were alert and completely focused. "Good morning," he called out. "I'm glad you made it. We need to talk." The hunters spread out instinctively, surrounding him. Ornyx hung back, watching, waiting. Something about the human's body language, his positioning, the slight smile on his face, it all screamed trap. "Surrender," the hunt leader demanded. "The trial is over. You've survived longer than expected, but you cannot win." "Win?" Rowan's smile widened. "You still don't understand what's happening here, do you? This isn't about winning or losing. This is about education." "Explain," Ornyx said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Explain what we're missing." Rowan turned to face him directly. "Your council evaluated humanity based on their understanding of predator versus prey. But that understanding is limited. You think apex predators are solitary ambush hunters with natural weapons. You think cooperation is weakness. You think tool use is dependency. You think persistence hunting is a prey behavior." "It is," the hunt leader insisted. "No," Rowan said patiently, like a teacher with a slow student. "It's the most terrifying hunting strategy ever evolved. Consider what it means. We don't chase prey until we catch it. We chase it until it physically cannot continue. Hour after hour, day after day. We're not faster than most prey animals, not stronger, don't have better senses. But we have something better. We have endurance and intelligence." He gestured at the hunters. "You've been running for nearly a full rotation. How do you feel? Tired? Stressed? Afraid?" Ornyx's scales rippled, the equivalent of a flinch, because yes, he was all of those things. "Now, imagine that feeling," Rowan continued, his voice dropping, becoming almost hypnotic, "stretched over hours, days, weeks if necessary, never stopping, never giving up. Always there, just behind you, tracking your every move. That's what we are. That's what humans do. We hunted megafauna to extinction on our planet. Massive creatures with armor, weapons, size, speed. We hunted them with rocks and sticks, and the absolute refusal to give up." The clearing was silent, except for the wind moving through the alien trees. "You think cooperation makes us prey?" Rowan said. "But pack hunting is the most efficient predation strategy in existence. Wolves do it, orcas do it, and humans perfected it. We communicate, coordinate, adapt our strategies in real time. One human is dangerous. 3 humans working together? We're nearly unstoppable." "You speak of your prowess," the hunt leader growled, trying to reclaim authority. "But you are still outnumbered. 3 of you against 3 of us." Rowan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Against 3 of you? No. You're surrounded." The rustle of movement came from multiple directions. Tess emerged from the tree line on one side, Nico from another. They'd positioned themselves perfectly, overlapping fields of observation, supporting angles, no approach left unguarded. The hunters spun, trying to watch all 3 humans at once, suddenly aware of how exposed they were in the open ground. "This is an ambush," Ornyx said, but there was something like admiration in his voice. "No," Rowan corrected gently. "An ambush would mean we're attacking. We're not. Because here's the thing about apex predators. Real apex predators, not just animals with big teeth. They know when not to kill. He reached into his pack slowly, carefully, and pulled out 3 containers of water, set them on the ground, then 3 ration packs. "You're exhausted," Rowan said simply. "Dehydrated, stressed beyond your limits. We could take you down right now, not easily, you're trained warriors, but we could do it. But what would that prove? That violence works? You already know that." He gestured at the supplies. "This is what makes us apex predators. We don't just know how to hunt. We know when to stop hunting. We domesticated wolves by feeding them. We built civilizations by cooperating instead of competing. We conquered our planet not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being smart enough to know that sometimes the best strategy isn't to fight." The hunt leader stared at the water like it was a trap, which, in a way, it was, just not the kind he could defend against. "I don't understand," he admitted finally. "Apex predators are defined by choice," Rowan explained. "We can hunt, we can kill, but we can also choose not to. That's what the Council missed. They saw our empathy, our cooperation, our tool use, and thought those were prey adaptations. They're not. They're apex predator adaptations. We're so far beyond needing to prove our dominance through violence that we've evolved past it." Ornyx moved forward slowly, picked up one of the water containers, drank deeply. His posture shifted. Not submission, exactly, but recognition. "You've been hurting us," he said. "The entire hunt, every trap, every chase, every sound in the night. You were driving us here, to this clearing, to this moment." "Yes," Rowan confirmed. "Why?" "To teach a lesson," Tess said, stepping closer but keeping her distance. Still predator cautious, still aware of dangers. "You wanted to see humans in our natural habitat. Well, this is it. Strategy, planning, cooperation, using our environment, wearing down opposition through persistence, and choosing mercy when we've won." The trial specified survival for 1 rotation, Nico added, checking his chronometer. "We've got about 4 hours left. But the hunt ended last night, when we could have taken you down while you slept. We didn't, because we don't need to." In the observation center, the council chamber erupted. Not in laughter this time, in heated debate. Species arguing with each other, questioning their own classifications, demanding reviews of the entire system. Nalmoth's mandibles clicked rapidly, processing everything they'd witnessed. "They've been in control since the beginning." "Not just in control," Gerakis said, and there was something like wonder in his voice. "They've been teaching. They could have hidden, could have run, could have fought. Instead, they turned the entire hunt into a demonstration. They're not just apex predators. They're apex predators who understand behavioral psychology." On Meridian 6, Rowan smiled at the 3 hunters. "The trial ends in 4 hours. We can spend that time trying to subdue each other, or we can spend it talking, learning about each other. Your choice." The hunt leader looked at his fellow hunters, then at the humans, then at the water container in Ornyx's hands. The decision wasn't difficult. It had already been made, really, somewhere in the middle of the previous night, when prey started acting like predators and his entire worldview began crumbling. "We talk," he said finally. We have much to learn." Those 4 hours were spent in conversation. Warriors and humans, comparing notes on hunting strategies, survival tactics, the nature of predation itself. Ornyx asked questions constantly, his curiosity insatiable. How did humans track prey? How did they coordinate? What made them decide to spare an opponent? Rowan answered every question patiently, and with each answer, the warriors understood more clearly what they'd been up against. Not prey. Never prey. Something the galaxy had never encountered before. A social apex predator with technology. When the trial officially ended, the shuttle arrived to collect everyone. The hunters helped gather the equipment, their earlier hostility replaced by cautious respect. They'd come to Meridian 6 to prove human classification. They were leaving with their entire understanding of predation turned inside out. The council reconvened in full session. The chamber was tense, electric with anticipation. Rowan, Tess, and Nico stood in the center circle again, but this time nobody was laughing. Nalmoth rose from his throne, mandibles moving in complex patterns that suggested deep thought. Captain Rowan, Commander Tess, Corporal Nico, the Council has reviewed the complete footage of your trial. We have reconsidered our initial assessment. Reconsidered? Rowan asked mildly. Humans are hereby reclassified, Nalmoth announced. No longer Tier 9 prey species. Your new designation is uncategorized, adaptive apex species. This classification has never been used before because we have never encountered a species quite like yours. Jarekis stood, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. The protection tax is rescinded. Furthermore, the Council formally requests that humanity consider offering training protocols for our peacekeeping forces. Your approach to strategy and tactics is unlike anything in our databases. Tess nudged Rowan with her elbow, grinning. Ornyx, standing with the other warriors at the chamber's edge, raised his voice. I formally request assignment to study human military doctrine. With permission, War Prime. Jarekis's expression might have been amusement. Granted. Perhaps you can explain to our forces how they were outmaneuvered by a species we thought was prey. Rowan inclined his head respectfully. We'd be honored to share our knowledge. After all, cooperation and mutual understanding. That's very human. As the session ended and the various delegates dispersed, still arguing about classification systems and predator behavior, Tess leaned close to Rowan. Think the lesson stuck? Rowan watched Ornyx approaching, the warrior's posture conveying respect rather than the condescension from days earlier. I think we've given them a lot to think about. The scariest predator isn't the one with the biggest teeth, Tess. It's the one that knows exactly how to use every advantage, including making you think you're the hunter right up until you realize you've been prey all along. Nico laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. So what's our official position now? Apex predators? Uncategorized badasses? We're humans, Rowan said simply. Same thing we've always been. We just help the galaxy understand what that actually means. They left the council chamber together. 3 humans who'd taught an entire galaxy that evolution's most dangerous predator wasn't the one with claws or fangs or armor. It was the one with a brain, a plan, and the patience to see it through. Behind them, the Galactic Council began the long process of re-evaluating every species classification they'd ever made. Because if they'd been wrong about humans, soft, tool-dependent, cooperative humans, what else had they gotten wrong? Ornyx watched the humans depart, his mind already cataloging everything he'd learned. Humans didn't just hunt prey. They hunted concepts, ideas, assumptions. They'd turned an entire trial into a teaching moment. That, he realized, was the most terrifying thing about them. They weren't just apex predators in the physical sense. They were apex predators in every sense. Physical, mental, social, strategic. They'd conquered their planet, not despite their apparent weaknesses, but because those weaknesses forced them to become smarter, more adaptable, more cooperative. 300,000 years of evolution had created something the galaxy had never seen. A predator that hunted with its mind as much as its body. A species that could choose mercy not from weakness, but from such overwhelming strength that violence was just one option among many. The Council had called them prey. The humans had shown them what an apex predator really looked like. And the galaxy, Ornyx suspected, would never quite see things the same way again.